Great. Well, welcome everybody to the second day of the 34th annual conference of the British Association for Psychological Type. We're all bright and fresh today after a fascinating day of discussion and interaction yesterday. This session today is sponsored by the Myers-Briggs Company. So thank you to the Myers-Briggs Company for that. And I'm delighted to see John Haxton, who of course is also one of our speakers here today. And if you want to find out any more about the MB Company, if you go on the conference website, there's a link to their organisation there. So thank you for your sponsorship for today's session. I'm very delighted to welcome Sterling Bates to open this second day of the conference as our keynote speaker. Some of you will know Sterling, but I'm sure he's a fresh face for some of you as well. And Sterling has this unique combination of technology, maths, business, marketing, organisation development, and psychological type. And that led him to found Step Research, a psychology software company. He was previously at Disney for, I think, about 13 years in IT and marketing, and he's been on the APT board for 4 years. I was very delighted actually when Sterling proposed this talk, 6 Dynamics for Building Balance and Belonging with Type, because I think these are quite neglected aspects of type. In the world of type, we often talk about the cognitive processes or the hierarchy of functions, and in the online world, everyone talks about the cognitive stack, but we don't often talk about the dynamics underlying some of our behaviours. But they can help us immensely with understanding ourselves and relating to others. So I was really pleased when Sterling offered to do this talk. So over to you, Sterling.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started right away and share that screen so we can get started here. And all right. And let's see, everyone can see my screen? Yes? I see a lot of thumbs up. Great. I'm rearranging the screen on my end and we'll be ready to go. All right. So everyone should have something to write with, a pen or pencil, pad, notepad, or for those, some of you digital tools, you're using your computer or your little notes, but just something to keep track of things. If you already have the PDF available to you that was for the session, then you maybe can skip the pen and paper notepad. So just be ready for that when we get to that point. All right, 6 dynamics for building balance and belonging with type. So here's the agenda. We're going to go through 7 different items. So an introduction from whole type, your 6 dynamics, the power polarity thinking, flexing, the 2 dynamics about communication, the 2 dynamics about roles, the 2 dynamics about attention, and then putting the dynamics in practice, and then resources to take us further. The slides and links will be available after. So this will be especially great for all the reference materials, the links, and the books that I'm going to make available here. I'm talking about. So let's start right with a poll. How much do you know already about the dynamics from essential motivators and interaction styles? And Catherine, if you'll pop that poll up for us, please.
Okay, so that should be there.
Yep.
So I think there's still some people thinking about this. I'm just looking to see how many are in.
All right, we've got about 90%. So I'm going to go ahead and in the poll and sharing results here. So I would say about 17 people chose, wait, what are essential motivators or interaction styles? We have 28%, so about 30% said, I know what those are, but what are the dynamics? And then we jump down to, I know the interaction style dynamics, but not the essential motivators. We have about 21%. And 31%, when this actually includes myself often, I know some of the 6, but always forget 1 or 2. And then we have 3%, one person said, my name is Linda Behrens and I created them, which is perhaps also the metaphorical option of I really know the 6. Or Linda Behrens is here. Either one, great, a great option. All right. So Essential motivators and temperament is a set of dynamics where is an approach where we get 3 of the dynamics from that. And the essential motivators is a way to look at core needs. And so for those who aren't familiar with essential motivators, they're a way to, it's a model with 4 different essential motivators that looks at people's core needs. That's exactly what it does. And it does correlate with type. And essential motivators, as identified by Linda Behrens, does a whole lot more than that. And you can get a lot more than those core needs by digging 1 layer deeper and looking at the 3 dynamics. Interaction styles is another model that again correlates with whole type. And 3 more of the dynamics of the 6 come from interaction styles. And of course, not surprising that Linda Behrens' model named interaction styles would be useful in many areas of life and work. It's called interaction styles. And it's powerful to dig past that layer of just that kind of top layer of the 4 interaction styles to look at the 3 dynamics. So I want you to think about the dynamics a little bit differently than how you maybe experienced them before. And this will be especially easy for anybody who's not familiar with them at all. I'm going to talk about the 6 dynamics, ignoring essential motivators and interaction styles for the purposes of this talk. So see, now you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to introduce them from whole type. So we're going to explore all 6 dynamics by starting with whole type. And each whole type has a unique combination of the 6 dynamics. So my preferences are for ENTP, and these are my 6 dynamics: abstract, informing, pragmatic, initiating, structure, and process. Don't panic, everyone, you're going to have access to get all of yours. So the 6 dynamics as presented originally, this, in case anybody's curious, the left side would be my essential motivators dynamics, and the right side would be my interaction styles dynamics. But that's just for those who know the systems. What I want you to do now is we're going to have you write down your own 6 dynamics. So if you already downloaded the PDF with the session, it's available. And I'm also going to put in the chat, I'm going to put a link both to the PDF as well as to
I think
the top link goes to a website. So it looks like this, where you can actually just click any particular preference and it'll go right there and give you results, or you can click and it'll view the PDF. So I'm going to give everyone, 2 minutes here to kind of find out and determine, write down your 6 dynamics, whatever they may be. So for example, Catherine Stothart with INTP would have abstract, informing, pragmatic, responding, structure, and outcome. So once you've identified your 6 and you have them ready to go, I want you to use the little thumbs up feature in Zoom, or little hand up, so that everyone, so we can kind of track who's that, most people have it. If you've got any questions, feel free to jump in with I have a quick question, or I'm having trouble, and we can help you troubleshoot here. All right. Great, thank you, thank you. Marky, you're going to be, what you want to do is look at your preferences and just so that you have recorded what your 6 dynamics are. So, so therefore, if you would be, for example, if you're going with ENFP, you would go with this set of preferences. If you're going with ENTP, you would be going with these 6 preferences. Does that make sense? You just want to know what your 6 preferences are. Your
Got
6
it.
dynamics are. ENFJ. You go. All right. So like here, for ENFJ, there it is. I had a thumbs up. Anybody else want me to help them get that quickly? Any other? Elizabeth Dunn asks, do dynamics and styles change if you have out of preference facets? And if so, how? That is a fantastic question. And we might address that a little bit, not directly. I think if you were to ask Linda Behrens, the answer is no. However, the point of the dynamics is that actually, we'll get to this later, you will flex between them both. So if you have out of preference facets, you're probably someone much more comfortable flexing between both dynamics of a particular set. Got it. All right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and then I think we're close enough. If anybody has any last second help, then we can jump in and go take care of that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get started back again with the presentation. All right. So this, for those who want a quick look at all six, this will begin in the slide, so you have this. This is just all six. So for one, abstract concrete, then informing directing, then affiliative pragmatic, then initiating responding, motive structure, process outcome. Don't worry yet, we'll get to each one of them and discuss them in detail. So I'm just, for those who want to see them all in advance, here they are. So as an example, here's another way to just write my preferences. Abstract, informing, pragmatic, initiating, structure, and process. Here's a great example of why I love dynamics, because even though ENTP and ISFJ may seem completely opposite, especially if you're looking at just the four dichotomies, when you look at them deeper, you look at the dynamics, you get a different story. So here would be ISFJ preference, the dynamics, but if you compare them, ENTP and ISFJ both share the informing dynamic and the structure dynamic. And that's one of the most powerful things about whole type, about using dynamics, is that all whole types also share some dynamics in common. Through the lens of the six dynamics, each whole type has something in common with every other whole type. Now, warning, the six dynamics don't add up to be whole type. It's the other way around. The dynamics are like the tools that whole type uses to meet its needs. Think of the dynamics as being where the rubber meets the road, where type interacts with the world to get things done. The six dynamics are the tactics and strategies your whole type uses to influence the world. Now we're going to talk into the real power of dynamics, which is the power of polarity thinking or flexing. So we're going to do the second poll. Are you familiar with polarity thinking, or have you done any work with it? Catherine, if you could help me pop that up.
Sorry, I am here, Sterling. I am here.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I can't open the second poll at the moment. Why is that?
Let me see if I can make that happen.
We're certainly there. It seems to be still on sharing the results. Ah, hang on. Right, I've got it now. I've got it.
Nope, that's all right.
Oh no, it's not, is it?
Nope. I just I launched the wrong one. I was on the wrong stuff. All right, have you got it? Are you ready to go?
No, I've got the situational leadership one up. Why is it?
Nope. All right, so then I'll launch this one. All right, now does everyone see the polarity thinking poll? Yes? Great. All right, we've broken 97%, 100%. Wow, 100%. Fantastic. Here we go. So here we go. What is polarity thinking is the majority at 32%. And then it pretty much trails on down. I've heard of it. I know the basics. I've used it before. I've taught it all the way down to 9%. I have taught it, which is at 3. So we have a beautiful, nice little linear line here going down of all of the results. All right. So for those who are familiar with it, for those who are not familiar with it, the idea of, and excuse me as someone who is not professionally does the polarity thinking, but the idea is to take, you have two poles, and as things move back and forth between these two poles, you have both positive as you increase using it, and then at some point you use it too much and you get negative results. A classic example is breathing. You can breathe in and you get wonderful positive results from breathing in. And then if you just keep breathing in and never stop breathing in, you start to get negative results, e.g. holding your breath. Then you breathe out and you feel that wonderful relief of breathing out. And then you start to breathe back in and you get, you breathe out and hold on to breathing out too long, you get negative results. Another way is awake and sleeping. So think of it this way. If you want to be awake as long to get the maximum benefits of being awake, but if you're awake too long, you start to get negative benefits. And so you want to stop being awake so you can go to sleeping. So this would be a normal polarity. This would be more like an optimized polarity where you're getting the maximum positive results from both. All right. So now we want to do the positive results from both aspects of one dynamic. So I'm going to start with the very first dynamic, which is abstract and concrete communication. So we're going to go through each one of these different groups, the positive and negative results of abstract and the positive and negative results of concrete, and we're going to talk about them as groups. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the positive results from using abstract communication, and we're going to do this as an activity. So what we're going to do is we're going to break people into groups of 4, and I'm going to give everyone 4 minutes. And your group, your job is to come up with what are the positive results from using abstract communication. If you are unfamiliar with this, you can substitute the dichotomies and think of this as intuition. So what are positive results from using communication based upon intuition instead of sensing, if that makes it easier? All right, so Catherine, if you'll start the breakout groups of 4, please, and we have around 4 minutes.
Yeah, okay, I'm creating them now. So when you get your invitation on your screen, please join the breakout group. Some groups might have 5 in, but with 4 or 5 in a group.
Great.
And it's 14:19. And did you say 4 minutes, Sterling?
Yes, I did.
Gosh, that's quite quick. Okay.
Because we're going to do it 3. We're going to do it 3 more times.
Oh, right. Okay. Just checking through.
I think we're having a great compliance.
Yeah, there's a couple of people haven't joined yet. Hopefully they either will or
yes.
aren't.
But yeah, but in both cases we have a large enough group. It's fine.
Everybody's back.
All right. So what I'm going to ask is that everyone pick 1 or 2 things from their group that they thought really best highlighted the positive results of abstract communication. I want you to put it into the chat. So I want you to take a moment and take 1 or 2 things from your group that just kind of really, you thought really was the essential thing that made a big difference for you. So this would be positive results from
Sterling, I've accidentally muted you. I muted.
No, I got it.
Okay, well done. I muted everybody else. Sorry.
So for Marky Reed, high perspective, idea generation. From Catherine, people can put their own meaning on what's communicated. Jerry, summarizing main themes. Options open, pattern recognition, seeing the bigger picture, context, curiosity, condensing, economy, explorative, big picture, generate new options, big picture thinking, the power of storytelling, freedom, intuitive leaps, openness, pattern recognition, brainstorming, sharing symbols, art. Some really great comments in there. So fantastic. This is great with a group who knows type very well. This is a lot of fun. All right. So now that we've had a chance to look at that, we're now going to approach this from the other side. So what are I'm going to have everyone go into groups again. This will be different groups, but negative results from using too much abstract communication. But for some people, it may be easier to think about this the other way. What are the negative results from not enough concrete information? So it's the same thing, right, for the context of our polarity, but that's what we want to get in there is in your group, discuss that. Negative results from too much abstract or not enough concrete communication. All right, Catherine, if you go ahead and get us started.
Okay, so everybody should have an invitation on their screen to join the new groups.
All right. This is what I meant by like, it's 4 minutes, but I'm having them, you know, by the time we're done, it's 16 minutes of group activities, which is now by most presentation standards, actually a little on the long side.
So
Great. All right. So we're going to repeat what we just did. Everyone, I want you to pick 1 or 2 things from your discussion and put it into the chat that for you is just really useful to share with everyone else, or you thought was a great way to describe it. So this would be for negative results from too much abstract communication. So people aren't on the same page, not getting things done, losing track of time. Yeah, not enough concrete, no rubber, no road, can create frustration, miss the obvious, relies on shared concepts to work, too dreamy, procrastination, inconsistency, can lose people. Your communication won't land with lots of people, ignoring reality. Map is not the territory. Lose objects, mysterious, too much theory, not enough practice. Overlook what has worked and has been done already. Harder to implement, can be misunderstood, absolutely. Waste time redoing things to keep it new. These are all great examples of what happens when you have too much abstract communication and not enough concrete communication. Yeah, the distractions, yes. All right, so what we're going to do is we're now going to now discuss positive results from using concrete communication. So I'm going to give everyone, we're going to do new groups. And so now I want you to talk about the positive results from using concrete communication. And again, you can think of this as what's of using the sensing from the sensing dichotomies. So think about that dynamic as well, if that's helpful for you. So results from using sensing communication or concrete communication. All right, Catherine, if you'll get us started. All right. And by now, I think everyone should have figured out the pattern. So everyone take a moment and type into the chat 1 or 2 things that for you is a great representation of the positive results from using concrete communication. Oh, engage with reality. Easy to understand, relevant, get things done, direct and linked to the present moment. Purposeful. Roadmap, a process, actionable steps to follow, solid, grounded, say what you mean, consistent, tangible, experiential, orderly, obvious, verifiable, less open to interpretation, absolutely. Precise, provide a quick and efficient, clarity, pleasurable, solid, for somebody, yes, brings in the senses and emotions, easy to share with others. We all share a concrete reality that can be reassuring, absolutely. Those are some great examples. All right, so now we're going to go to the last part of the polarity thinking, and we're now going to go into a group where you're going to discuss the negative results from using too much concrete communication. Or another way to describe it is the negative results from not enough abstract communication. So again, too much concrete or not enough abstract. All right, Catherine, if you move us into groups. All right, get those fingers ready. Into the chat, go ahead and put, 1 thing or that you think really is a great example of the negative results from using too much concrete communication or not enough abstract communication? The real is too real and we can't see what might be. Boring, overly narrow viewpoint, rigidity, risk overwhelm, demotivating for some people, yes. Get bogged down, lose track of the higher level things, yes. Stuckness, no sense of future, the non-imaginative, yeah, lose interest if there's too much detail, superficial, out of context, no direction when things change, straitjacket, lack of creativity to solve problems. Right, those are some great examples. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you for those. So with polarity thinking applied to abstract and concrete communication, we want to think about the same way we would think about that for being awake and sleeping. You want to use enough abstract communication to get the maximum possible positive results with the least amount of negative results. And, keyword, use enough concrete communication to get the maximum positive results with the least amount of negative results. Again, you want this result. You want to use both abstract and concrete communication and use enough to get the most results, instead of, for me, spending all of my time in the abstract communication. Polarity thinking can be applied to all of the dynamics, and honestly should be if you're going to talk about effective use of the dynamics. Another way to say this is we should each be flexing as needed for the people we are engaged with, flexing away from our preference for the one dynamic towards the other. And that's true for all 6. Now, if you're doing this with clients, you can do this kind of polarity thinking activity as a group activity for any dynamic. Or for that matter, you could just do it with one of the 4 type dichotomies if that's all you're taking them through. Or you can work with any opposites that work in tandem, not just necessarily the dynamics that we might talk about at a conference like this. So this is a really, polarity thinking is an activity you can go use for any of these kinds of dynamics. Now I'm going to dive more deeply into the 6 dynamics to talk about how it plays out in that balancing your life and your relationships. So the 2 dynamics focused on communication are, for me, my top 2, abstract and informing. But first, the way we use words, abstract or concrete communication. And second, the ways we influence others, informing and directing. Now, for people's convenience, I've also included the temperament name up top, the essential motivator name, and then the whole type code letters. So if you're later going through these sheets, these slides, you have that available to you. So for abstract communication, ask questions to get the meaning or logic and understand the pattern. Asking what is possible. For concrete, asking questions to get the details and see the pattern, what is real. So we already talked a lot about this dynamic with the polarity thinking exercise, so I'm not going to talk about this in more detail here. Instead, we're going to move on to informing directing from interaction styles. So again, look at your sheet so you know which one you are, informing or directing, or you can use the notes up here so we can talk about this. So for informing, focus on the input and involvement is the purpose of informing, and comfortable giving information. For directing, it's a focus on task and time, comfortable telling people what to do. I'm going to give you a secret. I think so many relationship communication troubles are from this one dynamic. If you only learn one dynamic from this entire presentation, this is it. Informing, directing, ignore the rest if you're only going to get one. And informing prefers giving choice and being given choice. So, but that may mean that the disadvantage, that failure to be clear because they're giving lots of choices, may make the other person feel like the informing person is being passive aggressive. It's forcing others to guess. You're giving me choices, not directions, and that could be bad. Directing prefers giving clarity and being given clarity. So but If you overuse that, failure to give space to others may make the other person feel like the directing person is being domineering, and that will be perceived as being bad. So, as an example, one of my personal trick as someone with informing is I make suggestions, like where we might want to go for dinner, and then say, and if no one else has any opinions, I have a very slight preference for. Note, this is not very much of a flex towards directing. This is only the tiniest of nods towards directing, but I find it's actually, even that is often enough to help. But if someone else cares, I'm happy to do that. Notice I can't get out of the point that I'm informing, but I can at least flex some. Another example of informing directing is situational leadership. If we have that third poll, who's familiar with or used situational leadership?
Okay, I think I've launched it.
I don't see it, so let me try that again.
It says.
How about now? Everyone can see it? Yep, and people are answering. All right. All right. And poll, share results. There we go. All right. So what is situational leadership? 41%. I've heard it at 22%, and then down at another about 40%. I know the basics. I've used it before, and one person is I have taught it. That's great. Love to hear that. All right. So we'll explain it. Here is a graph that kind of explains it. That's for your reference. I'll give you the simple version. Situational leadership is pretty much a developmental lens developed by Clint Blanchard and Dr. Paul Hersey. And it's a development lens at the workplace for helping people that you are leading as a leader. So you have that people go through a phase as an employee, an enthusiastic beginner, a disillusioned learner, a capable but cautious performer, and a self-reliant achiever. A more detailed way to think about that is the enthusiastic beginner has low competence, but has lots of excitement. So they need extra direction, but less support from the leaders. The disillusioned learner has now learned how much they don't know yet. And so they have that low middling competence with low commitment, and they need extra direction and extra support from their leaders. Third, capable but cautious high performer, they've started to develop competence, but they're not yet fully confident in their place. So they need less direction, but they need extra support. And finally, the self-reliant achiever, high competence with high commitment, needs less direction and less support from their leaders. So you can see this task behavior, directed behavior, which aligns with our informing directing. So think of this as this way. The informing communication approach is great for those with high competence, and there's not enough clarity for those with low competence. I have made that mistake as a leader when I've hired people, especially interns. I keep trying to inform instead of directing when I should be directing. For directing, it's great for those with low competence, but it feels like too much micromanagement for those with high competence. Quit telling me what to do. I know how to do my job. So think of situational leadership as a lens to help you see when and how to flex for someone between informing and directing. It showcases developmental reasons to flex, not just type preference reasons to flex. There are also project-based reasons to flex for the person you are talking to. Different kinds of projects and environmental situations could result in needing more abstract or concrete communication. So it's maybe not about the person, but about the situation is why you should use more abstract or concrete or informing or directing. All right. Now we're going to move on to the next two dynamics. These are the ones focused on roles. So my preferences are for ENTP. So I have a pragmatic and initiating dynamics. Everyone grab yours. Make sure you got your two. So for 3, roles and groups, affiliative or pragmatic, and for 4, roles and relationships, initiating and responding. So we'll talk about affiliate and pragmatic first. And again, I have the key up top if you need that to make it easy. So affiliative focuses on seeking agreement and is comfortable having defined roles, while pragmatic is about seeking results, comfortable being free to engage in expedient actions regardless of defined rules. So in the workplace, affiliative says, of course, you're respectful of all teammates and their time, especially of those who have earned their permission, their position. From pragmatic, of course, you are respectful of the few people who get the right stuff done and who could do things for you regardless of position. So note the problem here. One way you can tell if you're the odd person out in the group and not flexing well is if people act like you are failing the group. If you have a lot of affiliative preference people and you're the one pragmatic and you're ignoring roles, the affiliative people think you're not a team player. But if you have a pragmatic preference and it's all about getting things done and everybody on the team is about getting things done regardless of roles, and you're weirdly, from their perspective, focused on defined hierarchies and roles, they're going to feel like you're not a team player getting things done. From the more personal standpoint, affiliative says, of course, you always attend family celebrations. Pragmatic says, of course, you attend the important or convenient celebrations. If it's not important and very inconvenient, of course, you just skip it. Now, let's move on to the next one, initiating, responding. So initiating may speak first, then think, a quick use of time and expressive gestures. Responding may think first, then speak, sustained use of time and contained gestures. A good example of initiating is going to a party fundraiser where you don't know people. This can be exciting and energizing. And for responding, going to a party fundraiser where you don't know people, this can be painful. For initiating, when something really important comes up, they want time to talk about it. And for responding, when something really important comes up, they need time to consider it. Many resources for extroversion can be helpful for initiating, and for introversion can be helpful for responding. So that's another layer of resources you can tap into to maximize your value in initiating, responding. So now we're going to go on to the last two dynamics, and this is based on attention. So my preferences, structure and process, and if you want to grab yours. So for your attention, for 5, where we want more information, structure or motive, and 6, where we place our focus on outcome and process. So again, the keys are up at the top for motive and structure. For motive, ask or wonder about what is motivating someone. More comfortable when others' motives are clear. For structure, ask or wonder about how things are organized, framed, or sequenced. More comfortable when the order of things is clear. So motive, after someone makes a mistake, it is most important that it is clear how authentically sorry they are. And for structure, after someone makes a mistake, it is most important that it is clear how the mistake will not be repeated. Most advice for how to say you are sorry includes both of these steps. And the best apologies always do both. This is a great example of flexing. This can also be where company and organization statements go wrong. Mission statements, vision statements, departmental goal. If it's missing either structure or motive, then likely half the audience will think you are out of touch. And the last dynamic, process and outcome. Process, interest in the process for achieving the goal. How will people be involved? What is the plan? Outcome, interest in the outcome of achieving the goal. How easy it to achieve? What is the quality of the outcome? So this dynamic frequently plays a big role in any kind of group or team-based problem solving. So for example, for process, says the conversation, a process of discussion was the important thing, or at least having a process to follow, not what was decided. For outcome, outcome says what is decided is what was important, not necessarily which way you got there. Typically, either how good the result is or how achievable the result is, the ability speed to get done is what's important. Now, both aspects need to be addressed during good problem solving. First, obviously, half the participants will think the solution is incomplete if you only do one of them. But honestly, it's probably not very good problem solving if you haven't done both, if you haven't truly done both process and outcome. So now let's talk about putting them into practice. Best fit for whole type. Since every whole type has a distinct combination of the 6 dynamics, then no matter which two of the 16 whole types someone is trying to decide is their preference, there will always be one of the dynamics in opposition between those two types. So you can work with the person and explore that one dynamic and help them find their preferences in that dynamic, and that will indicate which whole type they will prefer. Again, a warning, the 6 dynamics don't add up to be the whole type. They're the tools, the strategies, the tactics that a whole type uses to work with the world. Another way to put it into practice is have a dynamic discussion. By this, I mean have a discussion and go through each of the 6 different dynamics that we've talked about today. And if you have the same dynamic with the other person, like a one-on-one discussion, discuss how that might be creating blind spots in your relationship. Discuss how the two of you might be overusing that dynamic together, and discuss what strategies you should use to address this. My partner and I both share informing. We have to figure out what strategies we use to get enough directing into our life. If you have a differing dynamic, discuss how that might be creating frustrations and missed expectations. Discuss how the two of you might help each other and what strategy should you use to address this. And a third way is polarity thinking in every interaction. Just really coming back to that. So as an example, you could think of polarity thinking in pure coaching. So a person can act as a coach for another. What dynamics do you share? How about you flex for the other person? What important points might you both miss when engaged in the dynamics you both share? You can work with each other. So in conclusion, polarity thinking and flexing with dynamics, whether it's in your personal life or at work, is really, really powerful. Resources that might be helpful. I'm going to give you the slides and links after so you have access to this to use. As an example, here's a way to look at it together from an essential motivator standpoint. So here you can get the 4 essential motivators or temperaments, but you can see how it's aligned with the different dynamics to make it easy to kind of see how they interconnect with the essential motivators. You can get more about this from both the book by Linda Behrens, and she has a separate book exploring essential motivators. There's also the I Am Team with Susan Gerke and Linda Behrens. The interaction styles, this chart comes from Catherine Stothart, thank you. Again, you can see how it begins to showcase the different dynamics as they tie into the 4 interaction styles, or all the 6 dynamics, I should say. And again, you can also go back to the book. Susan Nash's contextual coaching works on this. Interaction essentials, the Susan Gerke's, Linda Behrens interaction styles for working remotely, time dynamics, and then of course Catherine Stothard's How to Get On with Anyone can all help you explore those dynamics. And then you can learn both the lens and the dynamics. The lenses themselves are useful, not just the dynamics. So if you're looking for an additional resource that doesn't directly reference the dynamics by name, also Catherine Stothart has her book on motivation, which will be about essential motivators. So there's my information, and I'm also available for questions now if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to do.
I've just taken the spotlight off you, Sterling, so that it's easier for us to see everybody.
Great, thank you.
But yeah, we're slightly overrunning, but I'm happy to for a few more minutes. Has anyone got any questions? Sterling's covered so much ground there. So just unmute or put your hand up if you have a question that you'd like to ask Sterling.
By the way, if I were to just leave like one statement, I just love how the dynamics really make type active in the world and how flexing with them has improved so many situations I've been involved in.
I found those exercises enormous fun to do. They were short and snappy and hilarious sometimes as well. Really great.
Great, love to hear that. By the way, one of the fun about the polarity thinking exercises is it allows people to even dwell a little bit in the stereotypes in a way that feels somewhat safe, right? To kind of jump into the negative finger pointing things that could potentially cause problems, but you do it in a way that enables people to safely talk about it. Great, thank you, Stuart.
So any questions before I...
Mark, would subtypes affect these? Mark, I'm not sure what you mean by subtypes. So I'm not sure I can clearly answer that. Broadly, the dynamics are, you have a preference for some. Oh, Dario's work. I see what you're saying. Yes. By the way, I will let Dario answer that in that case, since Dario happens to be here. But broadly, the dynamic is just a preference. And you should be doing all 6 dynamics, like both sides all the time. That's the point of the polarity thinking and flexing. And it's just a question of identifying for yourself which one you are probably overusing and which one you're underusing. And by the way, for some people, that might be different in different contexts. Some people might be overusing one side at work and overusing the other side at home. So it's more of the recognition and using whole type to give you an idea as which one is likely the dynamic you're overusing, but that's up to you to figure out for yourself.
And that could be a reason potentially why some people say they record a different MBTI for their work and a different one for their home life, which comes up quite frequently, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and sometimes that may be because maybe at home, their spouse actually does that same dynamic really, really well. So they tend to not do it at home.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they? Their spouse does it and loves doing it. And so then they revert to a different dynamic. But at a work, their job requires them to do a particular dynamic. As we discussed with situational leadership, sometimes as a leader, you should be doing a particular dynamic because that's what your employees or your people who report to you need.
Yeah, I would also that the situational leadership, I mean, you can break it down task by task even. You don't have to have it as an individual fits one of the boxes. It could be on a whole host of different tasks. They could be in all 4 boxes effectively, depending on the task and the level of skill or the level of motivation to do that task. So I find it's a really very good and useful analytical tool because it shows how much you need to flex your leadership or your management style to actually accommodate someone's needs across the spectrum of different tasks.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment, Shirley. What I'm going to suggest is I'm going to give our formal thanks to Sterling, but I'm going to stay on the link and Sterling will stay on the link for as long as anyone else wants to stay. But I'm conscious that some of you may need to have a break before the next 3 concurrent sessions. So I want to say thank you so much to Sterling for that keynote speech. Everybody's clapping you, and it was a keynote speech and he's managed to cover all 3 streams. He covered the sort of type theory of dynamics and situational leadership. He managed to cover a bit on type practice with that example of how to run a polarity thinking exercise. And he, of course, covered type and me, because I'm sure we've all gone away with some personal insights on how to flex. So thank you ever so much, Sterling. I will stop the recording there.